Welcome to rSlash Askreddit, where people answer the question, people who dated an adult star, what was it like? And just a heads up on this episode, I wasn't planning on reading this because I assumed the answers would be super racy, but actually, I'd say the responses are more like interesting/fascinating than graphic. So I'd say this video will be fairly work safe. Our first reply is from Dark Omen. I went on a few dates with one. The first time we met, she wanted to meet at her place. She asked me to bring some shawarma, so I did. She has zero makeup on, she wasn't dressed up at all, and things were just friendly. The second time, I picked her up and we went out clubbing in West Hollywood. This time, she was well dressed up, makeup done, looked stunning. We had a great time and went back to her place. We had amazing intercourse, but not the type that you see on the internet, if that makes sense. The next day, she did an interview for, I think, Playboy Radio on SXM. They asked her about dating, and she mentioned our date last night. I got a shout out, not by name, but by what we did, and she said that we had a great time and that we're taking it slow. The hosts were all like, "Aww." We went out one more time after that for dinner and drinks. But then, I don't recall exactly what happened, but she just got more busy. Suddenly, I was ghosted. Turns out, she moved to Vegas on a whim. She told me she needed a break and cut all her social. Years later, it seems that she reactivated her social. She told me that she left the industry and was trying to be legit and live a quiet life. She did a bit of that kind of work after, I guess for extra money, but mostly she seemed to be wanting a regular life. All of her sexy social content was gone, and even the number of images of herself were reduced online. The last time we met was several years ago. She was always sweet and nice to me, but sadly, there was something broken or off deep down inside of her. I could sense it, but I could also tell that she really wanted to move past that, and I think her dating regular people and leaving the industry was a part of that process. I sincerely hope that she found true happiness and peace. Our next reply is from Mushy Brainiac. I met and casually dated a rather successful OF girl for a while after meeting up on a dating app. I found out a couple of months in that she did OF and made a terrifying amount of money on it. I was suspicious when she bought 2 PlayStation 5s in one day for each household like it was no big deal. We had a ton of fun together. She was very down to earth, recently divorced, and our love life was great. I only probed, OP, a little about her OnlyFans, and she showed me a little of it. Mostly solo stuff, some stuff with her ex-husband, nothing crazy. She showed me the thousands of DMs she was getting, and I believed her when she said she never moved any of it past DMs. It became a little thing for us that all these guys were dying for her attention, yet here I was getting to sleep with her. We talked a tiny bit about making content together, and I never felt fully comfortable doing it. I have a lot of identifying tattoos, and I didn't want our time together to become more like work or money to exchange hands. Life got a little busy for both of us, and we eventually stopped seeing each other. Then someone asks, how much is a terrifying amount of money? And he replies, I saw a deposit for around $45,000 for 1 month. Then he continues in another comment. The thing that was most baffling to me was the extent that men went to. We went on one trip and she paid for everything. I found out later that one of her subscribers had paid for the flights, hotel, and a rental car. As far as I know, she was upfront and told the guy that she had a boyfriend. The other weird ones to me were the guys who said they would pay top dollar for her and I to make content together. I always figured that would be a turnoff for them, but some of them were really into the fact that I was around. Like I said, we never did it because it felt too transactional. Our next Reddit post is from some young dude. I dated a girl when I was 19. She was wild, the complete opposite of me, and taught me a lot about just not caring about what people think. The poster child for social bravery. She always said that I was the nicest person she had ever been with, but she had a rough life. Her dad was a Scientologist, and she would tell me about the men in the church who would pass her around as a kid. That's the reason that I still get hostile when Scientologists try to talk to me on the street. So as for the lovemaking, this one night she was on top of me. The room was dark and my hands were on her hips when I felt this sudden hot stinging feeling on my chest. The light switch was right above me, so I turned it on. This insane woman had pulled out a razor blade and cut me while on top of me. I told her to stop, but I kept going because duh. And she did it again. Her taste for extremes was her downfall. She left me for her abusive ex. He put her in the hospital soon after, got her on heroin, forced her into adult videos, and she had a career for a few years where she was one of the up-and-comers to watch, or whatever. We kept in contact, but it was mostly whenever she was down on her luck and needed to talk. She got out of the industry, got clean, had a kid, and a year later relapsed and died. We only dated for one summer, but the impact she had on me, a socially awkward, anxiety-filled kid, is something I think about almost every day. I always think about her kid and hope that she only got the best from her mom. You know, OP, I realize that people do dumb things when they're horny. I totally understand that. But deciding to keep going after she cuts your chest with a razor is a level of ballsiness that I definitely do not have. That would have been the end of the relationship for me. Our next Reddit post is from Static Jones. Back in the mid-90s, I had a job at an upscale strip club. Their words. They regularly hosted feature acts, most of whom were active performers in adult films. One weekend, I was tasked with being a handler for one of these headliners. I picked her up from the airport, drove her to her hotel or wherever she wanted, got her to the club, etc. This particular woman was at the height of her popularity. She had a bunch of movies, and she was a big name in the industry. I picked her up on Thursday evening. She was exhausted and wanted a sit-down dinner, so I made a few recommendations and she picked one. She said that she hated eating alone in strange places, so I joined her. I was feeling weird, and I didn't want to sound like a creepy fan, so I tried to ask her about anything except her job. I did ask her what a couple of other stars were like once she gave me the go-ahead. When I dropped her off at her hotel, I walked her to the door and she acted like she expected me to try to come up with an excuse to come in. But I just wished her good night and told her to call me when she wanted me to pick her up. I didn't expect to hear from her until it was time to go to the club. But she called me in the morning because she wanted to go shopping. So I took her shopping. Then she asked if I had a gym membership somewhere because the hotel gym was disappointing. So I told her she could be my guest. I asked if she was okay with stopping by my apartment so I could get my workout clothes, and she was cool with it. It was weird having this adult superstar in my apartment, commenting on my art. She said I was probably the only white guy in America under 35 who didn't have a Scarface poster framed like the effing Mona Lisa. We went to the gym, and then I took her back to her room where she made it clear she wanted me to come in. We ended up in the shower together and fooling around until she decided she wanted dinner before going to the club. She was a hit at the club, obviously. She asked me to spend the night after I drove her back. She almost looked sad when she said, "Please don't try to f me like we're making a movie." She called it romance novel intercourse. She was big into dim light/candlelight and sticking to face-to-face positions with lots of kissing. We ended up spending every moment she wasn't on stage together, acting like a real couple. We exchanged emails. Remember, this is mid-90s, no cell phones. And we maintained a long-distance relationship for over a year. Every chance she got, she came out to my city and got to be my girlfriend instead of everybody else's girlfriend. Those are her words. The industry really wrecked her mental health and self-esteem in the early years, and based on the way she acted with me, it felt like I might be one of the only guys who didn't see her as an adult star. She loved that I asked about her job like it was a regular job. She loved telling me about the drama and gossip. She let me hold her while she sobbed about being assaulted by a male performer at some industry thing. Eventually, the romance and relationship became too difficult to maintain, and eventually the communication slowed. We would email, just much less frequently. She got married to a guy that she's still with today. I did get a pretty unhinged and sobbing phone call out of the blue when I emailed her and told her I was deploying to Afghanistan. A couple of friends of hers in the fire department of New York had died on 9/11, and she was having an absolute meltdown. Her husband actually took the phone away from her and apologized to me, but I assured him that it was cool and I would happily check in frequently to let them both know that I was okay. Eventually, all communication just fizzled out. I wonder if she even remembers our little whirlwind. Also, OP posted an update. I didn't have current info on her or her husband, but I reached out to one of her former colleagues who actually remembered hearing about me and still keeps up with her from time to time. They're back in the US, and she and her husband have been encouraged to reach out to me if they feel like it. They have my contact info, so I guess we'll see what happens. Then OP posted another update. She reached out to me on social media, but by reached out, I mean she like-bombed everything on my Instagram and TikTok, and sent me friend requests on everything. She sent a very sweet and happy message talking about her and her family, her oldest kid graduating from college, her youngest kid graduating high school and about to start college. She recognized the backgrounds in some of my photos and videos of places that we went together. She gushed over my wife's appearance and her unmatched skills in the area of costume design and construction. She told me she wanted to meet as soon as it was practical for everyone involved. She told me how her old studio recently tried to get her to come back to do MILF videos, and how she told them to go F themselves, since the individual who assaulted her and tried to R-word her still worked for them. She told me that she's actually very close with a couple of her old colleagues who have also retired and are doing their best to become nobodies. So this story has a genuinely happy ending. Wow, when I clicked this topic, I didn't really expect to have wholesome stories, but these stories are actually kind of sweet and, endearing. Obviously, the part about the assault is just awful, but it's nice seeing people, turn around their lives and become the people they want to be. Our next reply is from Swinton. I've dated 2 dominatrixes over the years. I'm not even into that, but it turned out they did that either as a job or a side hustle. Sometimes it was fine. Sometimes it was weird, because it's simultaneously just a job, but also an incredibly intimate activity. And every day felt different depending on how the relationship was going. Unfortunately, the first one had ADHD, bipolar disorder, and a bunch of other stuff going on, and she would forget I exist if I wasn't in the same room with her. The other one was, in hindsight, using me to get back at her ex. It was fun with both of them, until it wasn't. Our next reply is from Zero Charisma. I once hooked up with a girl who got my bite mark tattooed on her boob after the first night we hooked up. Then she showed me said mammalian protuberance in front of a bar full of my friends and colleagues. In that moment, I truly understood the term red flag. Our next reply is from Timely Manner. I met a woman online years ago. At the time, I was extremely depressed and lonely. We would hang out as friends, eat pizza, and watch movies a few times a week. I found out that she was a freelance adult worker. She would ask to hang out whenever she didn't have clients and we were both free. After a few weeks of this, she wanted to date, which surprised me. Then, in the same conversation, she asked me to be her pimp. The most illegal thing I've ever done is get traffic tickets. So this felt like a Walter White moment for me. She was a cool person, but I had to go my separate ways after that conversation. To this day, I'm not sure why she asked me to work with her, but wherever she is today, I hope she's doing well. Our next Reddit post is from El Minpo. I never dated one, but I was friends with one. And dang if she wasn't one of the nicest and caring people. I would sometimes online chat with her between her sessions. She wrote some books and even went on a book tour for one of them. My buddy dated a stripper and she was the total opposite, a real mess. She was as crazy as you'd expect and neglected her daughter. I felt bad for the kid, and I would play a bit with her whenever they would come hang out. You could tell that the little girl was starving for attention, especially father figure type attention. I felt bad when the stripper and my buddy broke up. The kid cried the most. Then beneath that, we have this reply from Severinx. Strippers are way more out of control than adult actresses are in my experience. I worked in a big LA strip club as a DJ decades ago for 3 months. I had to interact with these women constantly over their playlists and when they'd go on. And these broads were just awful, always manipulating, cajoling, and bullying to get what they wanted. When I left, the manager told me that now I know just 1/10 of how it feels to be him after dealing with these girls for a summer. And hey, if there's any strippers out there listening, don't get mad at me. I'm just reading. I'm not taking sides here. Our next reply is from Jarbia. Many years ago, probably 2008, I started dating a stripper in college. I learned that until very recently, she lived in California in a place she called Adult Videos Valley. If I remember correctly, it was San Fernandino. She made videos there for a while right after high school, made a respectable amount of money, and moved to the East Coast to go to college. Dating her was a wild experience. I constantly felt like I was on the verge of being replaced. She did whatever she wanted whenever the whim struck her, and I could tell she was always probing me for insecurity, which I simply didn't have. Despite all that, she wasn't demanding at all, and she paid for everything and would get mildly annoyed if I snuck a check or paid for something behind her back. The intercourse was not good. She had zero desire to please anyone but herself, but she would get irritated if I finished and couldn't perform after, despite her never continuing after she got hers. She was incredibly conceited and would basically only talk about herself. One day, she didn't show up at the coffee shop that we were supposed to meet at to study, and her phone was off. So I went to her apartment. When she answered the door and saw me, she just went, "Oh, sorry, I'm seeing someone else." When I asked for details, she just kinda shrugged her shoulders and said she needed to go. I later saw her walking with some turbo ultra beefcake. And for the next year or so, I would often see her upgrade to another dude. We had one class together a semester later, and she legitimately might have forgotten my name. I am really glad that I wasn't emotionally invested in that one. Our next reply is from Educational Quit. Freshman year of college, I dated a dude who I knew previously before he got into the adult video scene because we went to the same high school. We started talking, and he was honest with me about doing adult videos, so we established boundaries and continued dating. The first red flags were that he was constantly asking me if he could record me and so forth. I repeatedly told him no, because that's just not my thing, and I have no desire to be on the internet in that capacity. I forget how many weeks into our relationship, but I get a message from a friend wanting to catch up, and I tell him about my relationship. I guess word had gotten around that my boyfriend was doing adult videos, because my friend then asked me if it was me in a recent video of his. I told him no, because he's never recorded me. I go to my boyfriend's profile, and there I was in backshots with the most disturbing and derogatory title. I was completely mortified and heartbroken. I had no idea he'd recorded me, let alone posted it. My friend tried to calm me down by saying there was little traction on the video and nobody could tell that it was me since there's no face. Still, I was in shock. I confronted him and asked him why would he do such an evil thing, and his exact response was, "I'm just hard-headed, I guess." I told him to remove the video, and he did, but he just didn't seem to care that he completely violated me in every which way. I broke it off with him and blocked him on everything. I haven't spoken to him since. Our next reply is from Boomstick. I worked in the industry in the 80s and 90s behind the camera. I dated several of the girls in the business at that time, though rarely anything seriously. Some of them were just really fun to hang out with. One day, I was on a shoot and was filming this incredibly good-looking woman doing it. We wound up talking for like 2 hours while we were waiting around for another girl to show up. I asked her if she wanted to get dinner. We did. Long story short, we're still married today. So yeah, I get to say the first time I ever met my wife was filming her with another guy. Go figure. And then this reply, "Take your kids to work day is awkward." That was rSlash and if you like this content, check out my podcast where I publish the exact same episodes. Also, hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.